from Indiana. Smith tied up by Hall, and a jump ball between Smith and Hall. Handed from three. Hall comes soaring in again. Just uncanny knack. That cashes in.
Is on the upper left wing. Just got inside, circles around, pure.
The third game was not a basketball match. In the middle of the day, it seemed like a heist. Holding the advantage and matching the Aces blow for blow, the Indiana Fever came out firing. The whistles followed. They deprived the Fever of its impetus one by one. All of a sudden, Las Vegas is living on the edge. Aaliyah Boston is unable to receive a clean challenge, while A.A. Wilson is throwing elbows like it's street ball. It was seen by everybody at Gainbridge. Social media took off. The narrative is told via the box score. The Fever didn't go away in Vegas. They received the victory as a gift. The worst part was that it overshadowed Lexi Hall's boldest performance of her career. Do you think the Fever can bounce back? Say something like, "Let's go Fever."
Wilson sets a screen where she extends her leg out, but of course they call the foul on Lexi Hall for A'ja Wilson's illegal screen. Then A'ja Wilson and Alyssa Smith totally foul Michaela Timpson, but there is no call. Could have took a 1-point lead going into half. Now we're up by 3 and they call a foul that isn't a foul. So we don't get calls when we're getting hit, but the Aces get a call when nobody touches anybody.
Let's not pretend that this was the first time Indiana had to contend with the referees and the Aces, even though Game 3 was tough. The balance has tipped in favor of Las Vegas since the beginning of this series, before the Fever had a chance to take hold. In Game 1, we witnessed it. The Aces always found themselves at the free throw line when Indiana played aggressive, clean defense. When Vegas became violent, it was simply referred to as excellent basketball. The entire series was molded by that double standard. By the second game, it was hard to overlook the pattern. The margin swung more in Vegas' favor as the disparity in calls became more noticeable.
Why don't you think you were able to find any flow, and when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm. It's about timing. It's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from.
Quarter after quarter in Game 2, Indiana's rhythm was eroded by the constant barrage of whistles. After the game, even coach Stephanie White had to deal with the ongoing drag that had begun as a small irritation. It was more than simply a bothersome pattern by the time Game 3 started. It had become into a solid barrier that the Fever was unable to penetrate. When Aaliyah Boston attempted to contest a foul on Jackie Young in the third quarter, it was the game-changing moment. White gave a review signal. Despite the bench's readiness, authorities disregarded it. The crowd's excitement turned to utter quiet as Indiana's advantage vanished moments later after Chelsea Gray sank a three.
A'ja Wilson is 1 for 12 as a foul is called on Boston, and that will be number 2 on Aaliyah Boston.
You saw Indiana picking up full court pressure defensively, and if you're Aaliyah Boston, that's the one spot on the floor you do not want to get a foul call.
And Stephanie White is trying to challenge it and did not call the timeout in time. Gray in the corner.
The lost points weren't the only thing. That was the message it sent. Whistles and another simple Vegas bucket quickly erased the lead that the Fever had battled for every inch of. The Gainbridge crowd exploded, yelling and flailing their arms at the scarcely responsive referees. Within minutes, social media was inundated with clips that demonstrated how the disregarded challenge turned the tide in a single play. The officials mostly ignored the Aces' constant elbows, cheap shvees, and flops that were highlighted in those same replays.
A recap from last night. So A'ja Wilson pushes Howard in the back. Howard pushes her in the back. It's a foul on Howard. Look at this. Aaliyah Boston gets totally fouled by Alyssa Smith. Like, It's obvious, but no call. And then A'ja Wilson gets the call for not half as much. And then Alyssa Smith gets the call for not even getting touched. Here's a replay just to prove it to you. Yep, then again.
Because of this, it seems more like favoritism than an error. There would be no repercussions if A.A. Wilson dropped her shoulder into Boston. Vegas defenders raised their arms, which apparently qualified as good defense, while Fever players were knocked to the ground without a call. Every Indiana bump was viewed as a serious transgression. It was not ability or talent that changed the outcome of the game. Vegas gained momentum thanks to authorities who played a role. For fairness, whistles are used as weapons rather than tools. And
offensive foul, practically a football check, and the Aces score. So now the Aces cut it to 2, and then A'ja Wilson sets an illegal screen, and they tied things up. And then Lexi Hall gets called for a foul for doing nothing when they just had 2 illegal screens they didn't call. All right, so this is fair. Same thing happens on the other side, but they don't call a foul for Kelsey Mitchell. So Leah Boston gets called for this foul for getting her arm grabbed, but Stephanie White can't challenge. They won't let her. That's the second time this game they didn't let her have her challenge. And then A'ja Wilson starts acting like a big baby.
Although the spirit of a weaker team would have been destroyed by such an officiating disaster, one Fever player refused to let the narrative rest there because Lexi Hull wasn't going to let whistles define the evening. How often do you witness a player who most people thought would never even play change the course of a playoff series? Hull were the real headline of Game 3 as a result. She wasn't even anticipated to perform. She was labeled as doubtful going into Friday's game after aggravating a back ailment in the first game. Expectations were low, she had little rehearsal time, and her warm-up movements were rigid. However, Hull turned her evening into a tough, career-defining effort that Fever supporters will remember long after this series is over, rather than merely using her few free minutes to taunt colleagues.
Boston has the mismatch on Lloyd. Help comes. Kick out. Hull will fire. And hit from 3. Last 2 positions inside from Indiana. Smith tied up by Hull. And a jump ball between Smith and...
Despite her obvious suffering, she maintained the type of stat line one would anticipate from a star in perfect condition. 16 points, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 10 rebounds, and a steal. All the while making an effective 6 out of 10 from the field. Deep was where 3 of those buckets came from. Every time Vegas tried to gain the upper hand, each of them received a timely lifeline. These threes were also remarkable, as they tied her for the team record of 8 playoff triples in 2 games. Nobody anticipated that a player with a dubious injury history would accomplish this accomplishment. She set a new postseason career high with 16 points. However, the box score wasn't the only thing that stood out. Hull's effect stemmed from her unwavering perseverance. She chased every lost ball, threw herself into gritty rebounds, and did all the difficult things that most wounded players avoid.
Left side of the floor, just a clear out, letting Jackie Young go to work.
Jackie Young with 17 points. Boston to the corner. Hull, catch, fire, and hit. Correct call. Evans dishes. Gray whips a pass inside. What a denial from Lexi Hull.
The Hull able to save the play.
There were moments when her face was shown on video tensed in agony. She continued to fight, nevertheless. In order to keep possessions alive, Hull boxed out larger frontline players, chased down rebounds that belonged to taller aces, and even dove onto the court. She would somehow regain her composure and take vital shots after colliding with the ground. Every hustling play seemed like a boost to the Fever's enthusiasm whenever the referee attempted to slow them down. Hull's tenacious play kept Indiana in the game even as Vegas scored a ton of points from the free throw line. The audience came together in support of her because of this. They witnessed a player giving up her body since her squad was in dire need of it.
To Hull, wide open 3 is good.
The floor that she wants, doesn't it?
It does. Mitchell, cut it. Here's Mitchell. Mitchell, one more. You bet.
It was the reason the entire evening felt so unjust. Even though Lexi Hull had her finest playoff performance to date, the controversy surrounding the refereeing took center stage. Her spirit and perseverance were worthy of the spotlight. However, her narrative was overshadowed by never-ending arguments about missed calls. Hull personifies this Fever team's identity in a lot of ways. Frequently disregarded, continuously put to the test, yet never willing to give up no matter how difficult the situation. Then there came the other headline, which talked of A.A. Wilson's startling difficulties. Imagine being the most well-known player in the league and the clear favorite for MVP, but going almost 3 quarters without being able to purchase a basket. Wilson's night began with a self-assured three-pointer that suggested supremacy, but the excitement quickly faded. She was an incredible 1-for-1 from the floor by halftime. She finished with just 13 points on 20 attempts, closing at 6 for 20. For any starter, let alone one of the WNBA's top talents, such numbers would be disheartening. Wilson slid to the edge, imposing hard fadeaways and seeming shaken as Aaliyah, rather than controlling the paint and establishing the physical tone as usual. She was often forced off of rhythm by Boston's unrelenting defense.
She gets a foul call with a 3-point game for, I don't know why they called that foul, but it's the third quarter and they want them to win. So here we go. Ace is up by 3. They call another foul for A'ja Wilson that isn't a foul. All right, so then they call another foul on the Fever that isn't a foul. And then to end the game after it's out of control because the Fever had a 6-point lead, but they kept calling fouls, another foul for A'ja Wilson that's not a foul. Ball don't lie, A'ja missed 11 shots in a row during.
Despite Wilson's poor play throughout the evening, Las Vegas was still able to win. And it is the main source of annoyance for Fever supporters. Since everything else appeared to be going in the Aces' favor, they didn't need their MVP to dominate. Every time Indiana posed a danger, Vegas continued to find solutions, whether it was through the officiating breaks or the prompt contributions of the supporting cast. Leading the attack with 25 points, Jackie Young stopped each heated run with shots that drained momentum. Chelsea Gray contributed a composed, effective 15 points with deft layups and nailing jumpers anytime their attack faltered. Even Nneka Smith, who has had mixed results this season, produced crucial plays on both ends that accumulated at crucial times. The rest of the lineup put together enough play to capitalize on the whistles and recover control, while their best player clanked shot after shot. The way the game was covered added to the annoyance. Wilson's offensive difficulties were evident from her stat line, but most of the media ignored them in favor of praising her blocks, rebounds, and overall effect or giving the A's depth more credit. The true cause of her inefficiency was obscured by the news stories. Boston's unwavering defense of Aaliyah. Boston took off Wilson's space, contested everything, and had her wear uncomfortable low-percentage looks as she stalked her in possession after possession. When an MVP shoots hardly 30% and goes 6 for 20, it's not only a bad night. That is a top-tier defense that should have received much more credit.